Good morning and welcome to the Black and White Messages, which normally comes on Monday mornings. And this is your pastor, Matthews George, from the First Baptist Church of Blythe here in California. Now, here is how radical it gets when it comes to the gospel. As a believer, now this is crucial. As a believer, you do not have to be something before God, since Jesus accomplished everything on our behalf. Let's say if you obey God for several decades in your life, you will not have earned more of His acceptance than you were granted the very first moment you became a believer. What makes the gospel so freeing and so powerfully transformational in our lives is the fact that as a believer, you and I can run into the arms of God on our worst, most rebellious, most faithless, and hurtful day in our life. And God would wrap us with His love and His mercy. This means Jesus completely satisfies the Father's anger, and you and I will never face the penalty of our sins as a believer. So you do not have to live in fear of God's fury because Jesus absorbed it all in the cross of Calvary. So grace becomes the bottom line of our acceptance and our only hope. Now, does this mean grace gives us a license to do whatever we want to? A license to sin? Certainly not. In fact, Romans 6:14 says, grace is like for lack of a better word, a sin repellent which fastens us to God's love, taking away our desire to please our sinful nature, but fueling the desire to please God, our spiritual nature. Now, as a believer, you are also disciplined by God. Now, discipline is not punishment for our sins, but again, discipline is a conduit of God's grace in our life. Hebrews 12:7 says, endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as His children. Then in verse 11, He says, no, discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Did you hear that? Those of us who believe in Jesus Christ, hardship is God's training school. It's designed to change our heart, to make us more like Jesus Christ, to love, to care, to share, to forgive, to pray, to show kindness and mercy. It is transformational in nature. It is redemptive in nature. This morning, my dear friends, whatever you're going through in life, remember, God is still on the throne. He is sovereign, and His grace is sufficient for you. Have a blessed week.